Hello, my name is Jihae, and today I'll be presenting Foldable Spaces, an overt redirection approach for natural walking in virtual reality. In this research, we aim to tackle the challenge of enabling natural walking in virtual environments that are larger than the physical space available. Now, why do we want to enable natural walking in virtual reality? According to Locomotion studies, natural walking has revealed benefits in higher sense of presence, spatial understanding, and cognitive engagement compared to other forms of moving. Which leads us to the question of how do we mediate disparate virtual and physical environments to enable natural walking. A response to the challenge lies with redirected walking, a body of VR locomotion techniques that manipulates a user's trajectory to stay within the bounds of a tracking volume. These techniques can be categorized into subtle or overt, referring to whether the VR user can perceive changes implemented by the redirection technique. Redirection techniques can also be categorized according to whether it manipulates the architecture of VE or manipulates the mapping between a user's virtual and real movement. Our own work for Foldable Spaces is situated as an overt redirection technique that uses architectural manipulations to dynamically fold the virtual environment to reveal new locations depending on the trajectory of the virtual reality user. Most research so far has focused on subtle techniques. Here we briefly list a few. For instance, change blindness redirection influences the trajectory of a VR user by subtly making changes in the VE while the user is looking away. Impossible Spaces compresses a large virtual environment into a small physical space by overlapping discrete parts of the virtual environment. In contrast, overt techniques forego attempting to hide changes in the virtual environment from the user and tend to be more flexible than subtle techniques regarding the spatial constraints and representation of the virtual environment. Smooth assembled mappings, for instance, warps a large virtual environment to an acceptable level of comfort into a smaller one, and SpaceBender dynamically distorts the VE through bending whenever the VR user comes in close proximity to a physical obstacle. For our own approach, Foldable Spaces, we developed three novel overt redirection techniques: horizontal, vertical, and accordion. For context, the black outline represents the boundaries of the tracking volume with respect to the folding of the virtual environment. We compared these techniques against a similarly situated base condition, stop and reset. Now, to explain how these techniques work. Horizontal folds and reveals layers of virtual space like the pages in a book. It subdivides a virtual environment into discrete multiples of the physical tracking volume. There are openings on each page of the book, namely the ground plane, enabling entry into adjacent parts of the virtual environment. Vertical rotates adjacent virtual space towards the user along a vertical axis. Accordion corrugates and flattens virtual space to bring faraway locations closer to the user. It encompasses a similar but more complex folding mechanic than horizontal, as it involves three axes of folding. However, the additional axes of folding enable the user to see the whole overview of the virtual environment, as opposed to only discrete parts visible for horizontal. For further clarification, we provide here a quick preview of accordion in context of a real-world setting. Lastly, stop and reset, our base technique. To make stop and reset further comparable with all foldable methods, we implemented a hands-free adaptation where user proximity to a virtual door triggers the overt transformation. We thus conducted a within-subject-user study with 20 participants and compared our three foldable techniques for their base condition. Participants were tasked with searching for 3 instances of a specified virtual object and were given a maximum of 3 minutes to explore the VE. The location and material of these search objects changed between every trial. The virtual environment we used in this study was 6 times the size of our physical tracking space, but it is technically possible to include any extent of virtual space as multiples of the physical tracking volume. After each trial, we also asked participants to engage in a cognitive exercise consisting of a custom memory recall test and sketch map task. However, we did not observe any significant differences regarding how accurately they recalled details of the virtual environment. Nevertheless, the sketch maps themselves provided interesting insights. For instance, 4 participants specifically drew their sketch maps of horizontal as a series of fragmented levels, as opposed to a single continuous space. Additionally, we also logged the user's coordinates throughout the task to observe walking behavior. One of our findings was that participants walked significantly more smoothly in accordion than horizontal and stop and reset, despite users walking at similar mean velocities. In our semi-structured interviews, 6 participants expressed that stop and reset felt discontinuous, while 2 highlighted accordion as smooth and continuous. To quote, Accordion felt like I kept on walking and walking, walking. I even checked through the hole in the VR headset to check whether I was going to bump into a wall because I've been walking for so long. One of the priorities in redirect walking is to ensure a safe walking experience. Horizontal and accordion were significantly safer than stop and reset, where safe is defined as a boolean of whether the user left the tracking volume. At the end of the session, we asked the participants to rank the techniques according to preference. Accordion was the most preferred of all foldable techniques. Interviews provide possible reasons why. 9 participants disliked horizontal because it didn't provide an overarching view through the whole VE, and 10 participants expressed a dislike towards doors flat against the ground versus upright doors. 4 mentioned accordion or horizontal as more kinetically natural for a walking experience. In conclusion, we thus contribute Foldable Spaces, a novel class of overt redirection that relies on folding the geometry of a virtual environment to enable natural walking. Our findings show that accordion was the most well received by participants in terms of providing a smooth, continuous, and kinetically natural experience of walking that does not provide shifts in orientation and provides an overarching view through the VE. Lastly, we see that Foldable Spaces offers a distinct but complementary class of overt redirection to the current body of redirection techniques. It can easily be combined with subtle redirection techniques such as distance gains and complement other redirection techniques such as Space Bender to create incredibly dynamic and interactive environments that both bend and fold depending on user movement. Thank you for watching.